Hey there, folks, and welcome back to another market update episode. Today, I'm joined by a senior analyst here at ARC Advisory Group, Tim Shea. Tim, thanks a lot for the time today. Tim recently finished a market update study on robotics for the process industry, so we wanted to set some time up to share a little bit with the audience about what he found. Tim, thanks again for the time today. Could you just kind of lay out for the audience maybe how you defined this market analysis report?
Sure. Well, we looked at the market for process industries only. So in terms of our traditional scope, we looked at our regional breakdowns of North America, EMEA, Asia, and Latin America for our regional breakdowns. And then in terms of industries, this is really the key, is process industries like chemical, electric power generation, electric power transmission and distribution, mining, oil and gas, pulp and paper, refining, and other industries like that. That's kind of how we scoped out the industries. And then in terms of the breakdown of other segmentations, we provided a breakdown of hardware, software, and services. And then major applications would include things like cleaning, inspections, leak detection, maintenance applications, surveillance, monitoring, and then also surveying and mapping of different facilities. And then within another segmentation, which we thought was important, was the hazardous location certification, whether it's hazardous area certified, like such as ATEX or non-ATEX. And then we wanted to break it down by form factors, and that's important, we felt, because with the growing interest and awareness of bipeds, we're also looking at quadrupeds, tracked robots that work on a track similar to like a tank or something like that. And then also wheeled robots that obviously have 4 wheels and they move around and things like that. And then we had other form factors. And then we had our standard, customer types and then sales channel breakdown. So those are kind of the major scope segmentations and how we try to define the market.
Absolutely. Thanks for the comprehensive answer there, Tim. I think it's going to kind of help the audience paint a picture of the study in their head. Could you maybe just give them a brief synopsis of what the supplier landscape looks like? Maybe a couple of leading players and an up-and-coming smaller player potentially?
Sure. So what we found was, and this is kind of I'll do it in an alphabetical order, is that we had found companies like Antibotics, Boston Dynamics, X Robotics, SMP Robotics, Torob, Teledyne, Fleur. Those are some of the leading companies that we had, and they obviously offer different form factors. Obviously, Boston Dynamics has a quadruped, and they're going to be commercializing their Atlas biped robot in the coming years. And then we also have Antibotics with their quadrupedal robot. And then you have companies like X Robotics, which is more of a track type device that maneuvers around refineries and things like that. And then you have Teledyne Robotics, which also has a track type device. So then we had up and coming guys would be companies like China, like Deep Robotics with their quadrupedal robot, Unitree, which now has a biped in addition to its quadrupedal robots. And then companies like Ghost Robotics, which are kind of an up and coming company offering a quadrupedal robot. So those are some of the key players that we felt that were of noteworthy interest.
Sure. So, Tim, while you were doing the research for this, did you maybe uncover a couple of growth or success factors within this market you wanted to share with the audience today?
We sure did, yeah. The number one thing overall is really driving this market is the need for safety. People have been deploying robots to handle applications that are dirty, dangerous, and in some cases, we'll talk about that in a little bit, dull. But the key about robots is that you're being used traditionally in dangerous type tasks or areas that we don't want a human being entering in, like a confined space entry or things like that. And then also we're finding out that by adding the robot capability, it's freeing up these employees to do more value add work. So it's really getting away from that dull and repetitive and mind-numbing type tasks that have traditionally been handled by a human. Now they're trying to see that they can move that towards a robot. Other things that we're finding is basically there's an adoption of a model called robot as a service. And I think that this is going to have some impact in the growth because it'll help to get those companies on the margin that may not be able to make a complete investment in a robot or a fleet of robots. And they can subscribe on a monthly or yearly basis to have their robot deployed and have all the handling of the maintenance and things like that handled by the supplier. So that robot as a service, I think, is a program that I think may get some additional companies to consider this robot deployment, because it really is kind of a new thing. And a lot of people, human nature is people have a natural tendency to kind of be scared of new things. I think that this kind of robot as a service will help. We're also finding companies like Unitree and Deep Robotics and others that are coming in with lower cost robots because in a lot of cases, these robots, because they're early in development, there's a lot of cost in developing and things like that. They're coming out with lower cost robots, which I think will help spur the market, create more competition. And obviously, if the costs are lower, it's easier to justify the ROI and the deployment of these type solutions.
Absolutely.
Also, earlier about the bipedal humanoid robots, there's a lot of hype, I guess you'll say right now, about these humanoid robots. And I think that's generating a lot of awareness of just robots in general. And I think that'll help to develop and grow the market overall as companies look at it and say, geez, maybe a humanoid might serve for these applications, but I think maybe a tracked or a quadrupedal robot might help. So I think it's going to help generate interest and action in the market. And also we're seeing that the overall, the functionality and performance of these robots is just improving every year. I mean, they're incorporating greater amounts of artificial intelligence, machine learning, things like deep reinforcement learning to help the robots to operate more autonomously. They're adding in advanced software, application software and things like that that's going to help to create platforms that'll help in terms of inspections of perhaps oil and gas, focus inspections in terms of utilities. So they're trying to develop platform-specific offerings to really targeted for each industry. So that functionality and performance improvements is really helping to generate overall interest and growth in the market. Is the ability to operate autonomously rather than have to have an employee, go around and with a joystick or something like that, control a robot. Really going to free up people and greater demand and application growth.
Sure. So, Tim, what strategies, I guess, would you recommend to asset owners kind of looking to purchase a system like this? Like you said, a potential fleet. I know you said there's different buying options out there. Just curious on what strategies you might have.
Right. Well, I guess in terms of there's a number of different strategies, but I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit about some of the potential inhibitors that might be, making people a bit hesitant about the robot deployments. And I talked about cost earlier. I think that was one. And I think there's another factor that might be of potential concern for some companies, particularly that have a unionizing employee base, is the concern about job security. So if you can educate the employees that, look, this robot's not going to take your job, it's going to actually enhance their position, their capabilities, and their ability to add value to the company, I think that will improve the buy-in of the employees. In terms of specific issues related to buyer strategies, I think the most important one, again, goes back to the issue of safety. So you're looking for applications and areas where safety is a paramount and critical thing. And that's going to make it a lot easier to get management to buy in, because it's a lot easier to make an investment in employee safety in that regards. I think another thing they need to look at is carefully review the specific operation requirements to make sure that they're getting the right robot for the right application. Again, it goes back to form factor. Would a form factor such as a wheeled or tracked device be more suitable than a quadruped, or a quadruped be more suitable than a wheeled or a tracked device? So getting the form factor set up, looking at the payload, what type of sensors do you need to do the certain applications you may have, what kind of communication requirements you have in terms of Wi-Fi, Ethernet, 4G, 5G, things like that. So make sure that you have your communications capabilities set up and things like that. Make sure you have your necessary software. So you really want to look at all the operational requirements to make sure that you're getting the right robot for the right application. And as part and parcel of that is working with a supplier that's going to really look at this relationship as a partnership rather than just trying to sell you a robot and then move on to the next person. You really want to try to select a supplier that's going to work with you on a partnership type basis to make this journey. And really, it's going to be a journey as these companies deploy robots and then enhance their capabilities over time. I also would recommend certain buyers to consider perhaps a robot as a service strategy. I talked about that a little bit earlier. So if there's companies that are maybe a little hesitant, that they don't have the money to invest, they don't have the resources and the capabilities to sort of deploy the robots on their own, they could perhaps employ a supplier that's using a RAS or a robot as a service type model, and they can roll out on an OPEX basis rather than a CapEx basis, lower their initial investment, spread it out over some time horizon, and get the ability to get the service and support from the supplier so that their maintenance teams and inspection teams can focus on what they really need to do best rather than trying to be robotic experts. And then lastly is just try to consider, who's the company? Are they, if they're a more established company, that's probably a better recommendation than potentially a really small startup company that doesn't have a lot of backing. So you want to really look at companies that have the ability to provide longer term support and customer service.
Sure. So, hey, Tim, I know we're pretty much out of time here, but could you just quickly explain to the audience how, buyers of a study like this could benefit? Obviously, we have market share information. You had laid out a couple of things, how you define the market. Curious on your take there.
Well, I think that really the key things that the buyers want to know about who are the suppliers out there. What regions do they serve? Obviously, they want to make sure that they serve the region that the company's operating in. What type of industries can they have? What kind of expertise or experience do they have in those industries? And in particular, that regarding to applications. Does this company, like if I have a need for a robot to do emissions monitoring and detection, does this company have any leak detection type application solutions, or do they have an expertise in that area? Do they have what's their strength in inspections, or do they have any kind of ability or experience and case study examples in terms of surveying and mapping and things like that? Or perhaps they need it for surveilling of facilities. Trying to learn, understand what this supplier offers is going to be critical for those buyers to work with. And I think lastly, I would say that they get the ability to know what's the outlook of the market. If the market's going to be showing a pretty strong growth opportunity, the end user is going to have a much greater confidence that these companies will be around in the future to support their needs. So in terms of the major key buyer strategies that I see.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks a lot for the time today, Tim. I really appreciate it. I think your answer is very comprehensive and gives the audience a good idea about the report. Just a reminder, folks, we'll have links to our website in the description below. Feel free to contact us directly through there. We'd love to talk about how reports like this can help your organization. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for having me.